The sound of laughter echoed across the military base as two young women stepped off the transport truck, their gear bags slung over shoulders that seemed too small to carry the weight of war. The 480 battle-hardened Marines barely looked up from their card games and weapon maintenance. After all, what could two girls possibly do in a place where only the strongest survived? But in the unforgiving mountains of Afghanistan, where death lurked behind every rock and every shadow could hide an enemy, these two sisters would prove that sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the biggest gun or the strongest soldier. Sometimes it's the quiet determination of those who have been underestimated their entire lives. Within 72 hours, those same Marines who had dismissed them with cruel jokes would be begging for their protection. The enemy snipers who had been picking off American soldiers one by one were about to meet their match. And two sisters from small-town America were about to write their names into military legend with bullets that never missed their mark. This is the story of how mockery turned into respect, how doubt became admiration, and how two women changed the course of a battle that everyone thought was already lost. Sarah Mitchell adjusted her rifle scope for the third time that morning, trying to ignore the snickers coming from the group of Marines gathered around the makeshift table behind her. At 24, she had already proven herself as one of the best marksmen in her unit, but here at Forward Operating Base Reaper, nestled in the hostile mountains of Afghanistan, she felt like she was starting over again. Her younger sister Emma, just 22, sat beside her checking her ammunition count with the methodical precision that had made her legendary back at Fort Bragg. The two women had grown up hunting deer in the forests of Montana with their father, a Vietnam veteran who taught them that patience and precision mattered more than size or strength. Now, deployed together for the first time, they found themselves surrounded by 480 Marines who seemed more interested in making jokes than acknowledging their combat records. The base commander, Colonel Rodriguez, had specifically requested the Mitchell sisters after losing 3 Marine snipers to enemy fire in the past month. The Taliban had positioned expert marksmen in the surrounding ridges, and American patrols were taking casualties daily. Intelligence reports suggested at least 5 highly trained enemy snipers were operating in the area, picking off American soldiers with devastating accuracy. The morning briefing had been brutal. Rodriguez stood before a room full of hardened warriors, explaining that the sisters were their new sniper support team. The reaction was immediate and harsh. Sergeant Thompson, a 20-year veteran with arms like tree trunks, actually laughed out loud. Other Marines exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their confidence in the new arrivals. Thompson later cornered Sarah near the communications tent. His breath reeked of tobacco as he leaned close and whispered that this wasn't some training exercise back home. Real bullets were flying here, he said, and real men were dying. He suggested the sisters might be more useful in the kitchen than on the battlefield. Sarah said nothing, but Emma noticed her sister's jaw tighten in the way it always had since childhood when someone questioned her abilities. The base itself was a testament to the harsh realities of mountain warfare. Built into a valley surrounded by towering peaks, it offered little natural protection from enemy snipers positioned in the high ground. Previous American sniper teams had tried to establish counter-sniper positions, but the Taliban marksmen seemed to anticipate every move. 3 Marine snipers had been killed in the past month, and 2 more had been severely wounded. The sisters spent their first day studying maps and intelligence reports. They learned that the enemy snipers typically struck during dawn and dusk patrols, using the changing light to mask their positions. The Taliban marksmen were patient and disciplined, often waiting hours for the perfect shot. Local intelligence suggested they were foreign fighters, possibly Chechen or Pakistani, with extensive military training. Emma discovered that previous American sniper teams had made a critical error. They were positioning themselves in obvious locations that offered good views, but poor concealment. The enemy snipers were systematically hunting the hunters, using superior knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. The sisters realized they needed to think differently about this mission. That evening, Sarah and Emma sat outside their small bunker, cleaning their rifles under the harsh fluorescent lights that illuminated the base perimeter. The weapon maintenance was second nature to them, learned through thousands of hours practicing with their father in Montana. Their rifles were customized Remington 700s, equipped with high-powered scopes and modified triggers that responded to the slightest pressure. A group of Marines approached, led by Corporal Jackson, a stocky man from Texas who had been particularly vocal about his doubts regarding the sisters' capabilities. He carried a beer in one hand and wore a smirk that suggested trouble. Jackson announced loudly that he had never seen women who could handle real combat pressure, especially not the kind of pressure they would face when Taliban bullets started flying in their direction. Sarah looked up from her rifle and asked Jackson if he had ever made a confirmed kill at over 1,200 meters. The question caught him off guard. She continued, explaining that she had 17 confirmed kills at distances exceeding that range, while Emma had 15. The numbers were accurate, documented in their military records, but Jackson seemed skeptical. Emma stood and walked to the sandbag barrier that marked the edge of the base perimeter. In the distance, barely visible in the gathering darkness, a communications tower stood on a ridge approximately 800 meters away. Taliban forces had abandoned it weeks earlier, but a small metal plate remained attached to its base. Emma raised her rifle, adjusted for wind and distance, and fired a single shot. The metallic ping echoed across the valley as the bullet struck the plate dead center. The demonstration should have impressed the Marines, but Jackson dismissed it as a lucky shot at a stationary target. He pointed out that enemy snipers shot back, creating pressure that most people could not handle. Real combat was different from target practice, he insisted. The other Marines nodded in agreement, though some seemed less certain after witnessing Emma's marksmanship. The sisters returned to their bunker without responding to Jackson's comments. They had learned long ago that actions spoke louder than words. Their father had taught them to let their shooting do the talking, and tomorrow they would have the opportunity to prove themselves where it mattered most. During their second day at the base, intelligence reported increased enemy sniper activity in the northern sector. A Marine patrol had taken fire that morning, with one soldier wounded by a precise shot to the shoulder. The enemy sniper had escaped before American forces could locate his position. Colonel Rodriguez called for an immediate response and reluctantly assigned the Mitchell sisters to hunt the Taliban marksman. The mission briefing was tense. Rodriguez explained that the enemy sniper was believed to be operating from a series of caves and rock formations in the northern ridgeline. Previous attempt to locate him had failed, and he seemed to vanish after each attack. The colonel made it clear that he was giving the sisters this assignment because he had no other options available. Sarah studied the topographical maps, while Emma examined reconnaissance photographs of the target area. They identified 3 possible sniper positions based on the angle of the shot that had wounded the Marine that morning. The enemy marksman was clearly skilled, choosing positions that offered both excellent fields of fire and multiple escape routes. The sisters decided to establish their position before dawn, giving them time to study the area and identify the enemy sniper's location. They would need to move through terrain that offered little cover, carrying their rifles and enough ammunition and supplies to sustain them for potentially 12 hours or more. Thompson volunteered to escort them to the edge of the base perimeter, though his offer seemed motivated more by skepticism than genuine support. As they prepared to leave, he made another comment about the differences between training and real combat. Sarah finally responded, telling him that they had both completed multiple combat tours and had never missed a shot when lives were on the line. The trek to their chosen position took 3 hours through rocky terrain that threatened to twist ankles and tear equipment. Both sisters carried their rifles, additional ammunition, water, and communication gear. The weight was substantial, but their Montana upbringing had prepared them for physical challenges. They moved silently through the darkness, communicating through hand signals their father had taught them during hunting expeditions. They established their hide site in a cluster of rocks that provided concealment while offering clear views of the suspected enemy positions. The location was uncomfortable and exposed, but it gave them the angles they needed to engage targets in the northern ridge. As dawn approached, they settled in to wait for their opportunity. The enemy sniper revealed himself just after sunrise, exactly as intelligence had predicted. Sarah spotted the muzzle flash from a cave opening approximately 900 meters away. The Taliban marksman had fired at a Marine patrol in the valley below, but had missed his target. Sarah immediately began calculating range, wind speed, and bullet drop while Emma served as her spotter, using binoculars to track the target. The shot required absolute precision. The cave opening was narrow, and the enemy sniper was partially concealed behind rocks. Sarah had only a few seconds before the Taliban fighter would retreat deeper into the cave system. She controlled her breathing, adjusted for the crosswind, and squeezed the trigger with the smooth motion her father had drilled into her since childhood. The bullet traveled for nearly 3 seconds before finding its target. Sarah watched through her scope as the enemy sniper dropped his weapon and fell backward into the cave. Emma confirmed the hit through her binoculars. Their first engagement had been successful, but both sisters knew the real test was just beginning. Word of their success spread quickly through the base when they returned that afternoon. Some Marines seemed impressed, but others remained skeptical. Jackson suggested that killing one enemy sniper proved nothing, especially since they had not been under return fire. He predicted that the sisters would crack under pressure when facing multiple enemies who were shooting back. Colonel Rodriguez assigned them a more challenging mission for the following day. Intelligence had identified a Taliban sniper team operating from multiple positions in the eastern sector. At least 3 enemy marksmen were believed to be coordinating their attacks, making them far more dangerous than a single shooter. The mission would require the sisters to neutralize multiple targets while potentially under fire from various directions. Sarah and Emma spent the evening planning their approach. They would need to position themselves where they could engage targets in multiple locations while maintaining concealment from enemy forces. The mission was exactly the kind of complex challenge that had made their reputations back in the United States, but they had never faced multiple enemy snipers who knew they were coming. The base fell silent as evening approached, with only the distant sound of generators and radio chatter breaking the mountain quiet. Tomorrow would determine whether the Mitchell sisters could live up to their reputations, or whether the 480 Marines who had dismissed them had been right all along. The stakes could not have been higher, and everyone at Forward Operating Base Reaper knew that lives depended on what happened next. The pre-dawn air cut through their gear like frozen knives as Sarah and Emma Mitchell moved through the rocky terrain toward their new position. Intelligence had confirmed 3 Taliban snipers working in coordination, positioned across a mile-long ridge that overlooked the main supply route into Forward Operating Base Reaper. American convoys had been taking casualties for weeks, with drivers and gunners picked off by precise shots from multiple angles. Emma carried the additional spotting equipment they would need for this complex mission. Her pack contained rangefinders, wind meters, and communication gear that would allow them to coordinate with base operations and call in artillery if necessary. Sarah focused on route selection, choosing paths that would minimize their exposure to enemy observation while getting them close enough to engage all 3 suspected sniper positions. The sisters had studied satellite imagery for hours the previous night, memorizing every rock formation and potential hiding spot in their assigned sector. They identified a position approximately 1,100 meters from the nearest enemy location that would give them clear lines of sight to all 3 suspected Taliban positions. The spot offered decent concealment, but little protection if enemy forces managed to locate them and return fire. Colonel Rodriguez had made the stakes clear during the mission briefing. A convoy carrying critical medical supplies was scheduled to use the supply route at 1,400 hours. The Taliban snipers had to be neutralized before then, or American soldiers would continue dying on a road that should have been secure. The colonel admitted privately that he was running out of options, and The Mitchell sisters represented his last hope of solving this problem. The climb to their position took 4 hours through terrain that would have challenged experienced mountain climbers. Both women carried 60-pound packs in addition to their rifles and ammunition. They moved steadily upward, using techniques learned during survival training to conserve energy while maintaining speed. Their Montana childhood had prepared them for this kind of physical challenge, but the altitude and thin air made every step more difficult. They reached their chosen position as the sun began to illuminate the eastern peaks. Sarah immediately began setting up her rifle while Emma established the spotting position and communication center. They worked with practiced efficiency, knowing that enemy forces might detect them if they remained exposed for too long. Within 15 minutes, they were ready to begin hunting the Taliban snipers who had been terrorizing American forces. Emma used high-powered binoculars to scan the suspected enemy positions, while Sarah prepared her rifle for multiple engagements. They had brought enough ammunition for extended combat, including armor-piercing rounds designed to penetrate the rock formations where enemy snipers typically hid. The sisters planned to engage the most dangerous target first, then shift quickly to eliminate the remaining threats before they could escape or coordinate a response. The first enemy sniper revealed himself at 0847 hours when he fired at a Marine patrol moving through the valley below. Emma immediately spotted the muzzle flash from a cave opening in the northern section of the ridge. She called out the range and wind conditions while Sarah adjusted her scope and prepared for the shot. The target was partially concealed behind rocks, with only his rifle barrel and part of his head visible through the cave entrance. Sarah controlled her breathing and squeezed the trigger with a smooth motion that had become automatic after thousands of practice rounds. The bullet traveled across the valley in just over 2 seconds, striking the enemy sniper in the head and killing him instantly. Emma confirmed the hit through her binoculars and immediately began scanning for the second target. The second Taliban marksman made a critical error by moving to a new position immediately after hearing Sarah's shot. Emma spotted him crossing an open area between rock formations, approximately 950 meters from their location. She called out his position and direction of movement while Sarah quickly adjusted her aim. The enemy fighter was moving fast, but his path was predictable. Sarah led the target slightly and fired her second shot. The bullet caught the Taliban sniper's center mass, spinning him around and dropping him behind a boulder. Emma confirmed the second kill and continued searching for the third enemy marksman. 2 down, but the most dangerous one remained hidden somewhere in the ridge complex. The third sniper proved far more intelligent and patient than his companions. Instead of revealing himself immediately, he waited and watched, trying to determine where the American shots were coming from. Sarah and Emma remained motionless in their concealed position, knowing that any movement might give away their location to an enemy who was now actively hunting them. 20 minutes passed before the third Taliban fighter made his move. Instead of engaging American forces in the valley, he began working his way along the ridge toward the sisters' suspected position. Emma spotted him moving between rocks approximately 800 meters away, using terrain features to mask his approach. He was closing the distance, trying to get close enough for a killing shot. Sarah shifted her position slightly to get a better angle on the approaching enemy sniper. The movement was minimal, but it may have caught the Taliban fighter's attention. Suddenly, a bullet cracked past Sarah's head, missing her by inches and striking the rocks behind their position. The third enemy marksman had spotted them and was now engaging with deadly accuracy. Emma immediately called out the enemy sniper's position while Sarah worked her rifle bolt to chamber another round. The Taliban fighter was moving again, trying to get to a position where he could finish them both. Time was running out, and both sisters knew that their next few seconds would determine whether they completed the mission or became casualties themselves. Sarah spotted movement behind a rock formation and fired immediately, not waiting for Emma's confirmation. The shot was rushed, and she knew immediately that she had missed. The enemy sniper returned fire again, this time coming even closer to finding its mark. Rock fragments from the impact peppered both women, but neither was seriously injured. The Taliban marksman was now less than 600 meters away and closing fast. He had abandoned stealth in favor of speed, betting that he could get close enough to kill both American snipers before they could stop him. Sarah worked her rifle bolt again and tried to control her breathing despite the adrenaline flooding her system. Emma spotted the enemy fighter moving between two boulders and called out his exact position. Sarah adjusted her aim and fired her fourth shot of the engagement. This time, the bullet found its target, striking the Taliban sniper in the chest and ending his advance permanently. Emma confirmed the third kill, and suddenly, the ridge fell silent except for the wind whistling through the rocks. The mission was complete, but both sisters knew they needed to evacuate their position immediately. Other enemy forces in the area had certainly heard the gunfire and would be moving to investigate. Sarah and Emma quickly packed their equipment and began the dangerous trek back to base, moving as fast as possible while remaining alert for additional threats. The journey back took 3 hours through terrain that now seemed even more hostile than before. Every shadow could hide an enemy fighter, and every sound might indicate pursuit. The sisters moved with weapons ready, prepared to fight their way out if necessary. Their success against the 3 Taliban snipers meant nothing if they could not make it back to report their mission completion. They reached forward operating base Reaper just as the medical supply convoy was preparing to depart. Colonel Rodriguez was waiting at the gate, and his relief was obvious when he saw them approaching. The convoy would be able to use the supply route safely, and American soldiers would receive the medical supplies they desperately needed. Word of the sisters' success spread through the base within hours. They had eliminated 3 coordinated enemy snipers in a single engagement while under direct fire. The Marines who had dismissed them with jokes and skepticism were beginning to reassess their opinions. Sergeant Thompson approached Sarah that evening and admitted that he might have misjudged their capabilities. But the real test of respect came from an unexpected source. Corporal Jackson, who had been the most vocal critic of the sisters' presence at the base, sought them out during evening chow. He sat down across from Sarah and Emma without invitation and asked detailed questions about their shooting techniques and tactical decisions. His attitude had changed completely from mockery to genuine professional interest. Jackson explained that he had been wrong about their abilities, but he also admitted that many Marines still harbored doubts. The successful mission had impressed everyone, but some still believe the sisters had been lucky rather than skilled. Jackson suggested that they would need to prove themselves again, possibly multiple times, before gaining complete acceptance from the unit. Sarah pointed out that they had never asked for acceptance, only the opportunity to do their job. She and Emma had come to forward operating base Reaper to eliminate enemy snipers and protect American lives. The opinions of other soldiers mattered less than mission success and keeping their fellow service members safe. Emma added that they expected to face additional challenges in the coming days and weeks. Intelligence reports suggested that Taliban forces were bringing in more trained marksmen to replace the ones they had killed. The enemy was adapting to American sniper tactics, and future missions would likely be even more dangerous and complex. Colonel Rodriguez called them to his command post that evening to discuss their next assignment. Intelligence had intercepted communications indicating that Taliban commanders were planning a major assault on the base within the next week. Enemy forces were massing in the mountains surrounding forward operating base Reaper, and sniper teams would play a crucial role in the upcoming battle. The colonel explained that the base was vulnerable to attack from multiple directions due to its location in the valley. American forces had excellent fields of fire from their defensive positions, but enemy snipers positioned in the high ground could target critical personnel and equipment during an assault. The Mitchell sisters would be responsible for counter-sniper operations during what was expected to be the largest Taliban attack on the base since its establishment. Sarah asked about available intelligence regarding enemy sniper capabilities and probable positions. The colonel admitted that information was limited, but satellite reconnaissance had identified several locations where Taliban forces were preparing fighting positions. American intelligence estimated that at least 8 trained enemy marksmen would participate in the assault, possibly more. Emma studied the maps showing enemy positions and realized that the coming battle would be unlike anything they had faced before. Instead of hunting individual snipers in isolated locations, they would be engaging multiple targets simultaneously while under fire from various directions. The mission would require split-second decisions and perfect accuracy under extreme pressure. The sisters spent the remainder of the evening preparing for what everyone at Forward Operating Base Reaper knew would be the fight of their lives. They cleaned their weapons again, checked their ammunition supplies, and studied every piece of available intelligence about enemy capabilities and intentions. Tomorrow would bring challenges that would test everything they had learned about combat and survival. As they settled into their bunker for a few hours of rest, both women understood that their reputations and the lives of 480 Marines depended on their performance in the coming battle. The mockery and skepticism they had faced upon arrival seemed insignificant compared to the responsibility they now carried. The real test was still ahead, and failure was not an option. The attack began at 0430 hours with a barrage of rocket-propelled grenades that lit up the pre-dawn darkness like deadly fireworks. Sarah Mitchell jolted awake in her bunker as explosions rocked Forward Operating Base Reaper, sending dirt and debris cascading from the reinforced ceiling. Emma was already reaching for her rifle, the months of combat experience having trained her body to react to danger even before her mind fully registered the threat. Outside their shelter, the base erupted into controlled chaos as 480 Marines rushed to defensive positions they had rehearsed countless times. Sergeant Thompson's voice boomed across the compound, directing squads to their assigned sectors while mortar rounds began falling among the buildings. The Taliban assault was larger and more coordinated than intelligence had predicted, with enemy fighters attacking from 3 different directions simultaneously. Colonel Rodriguez's voice crackled over the radio, calling all sniper teams to their predetermined positions. Sarah and Emma had spent the previous day identifying 3 separate locations within the base perimeter where they could engage enemy marksmen positioned in the surrounding mountains. Their primary position offered the best fields of fire, but it was also the most exposed to counter-sniper attack. The sisters moved through the base compound while rockets continued to streak overhead and automatic weapons fire echoed from the perimeter. They could see muzzle flashes in the mountains surrounding the valley, indicating that Taliban forces had achieved better positioning than American commanders had expected. Emma counted at least 12 separate firing positions, suggesting an enemy force much larger than the estimated attack strength. They reached their primary sniper position just as enemy marksmen began engaging American defenders with precision fire. A Marine machine gunner screamed and fell backward from his position, struck by a bullet that had traveled over 800 meters from the eastern ridge. Sarah immediately began scanning that sector with her rifle scope while Emma set up spotting equipment and established radio communication with the command post. The first enemy sniper revealed himself when he fired at the base communications array, trying to disrupt American coordination efforts. Emma spotted the muzzle flash from a concealed position approximately 1,000 meters away and called out range and wind conditions. Sarah adjusted her scope and prepared to engage, but before she could fire, 2 more enemy snipers opened up from different locations. Suddenly, the sisters found themselves facing exactly the scenario they had trained for but hoped never to encounter. Multiple enemy marksmen were engaging American forces from various directions, and traditional counter-sniper tactics would be insufficient. They needed to eliminate threats faster than enemy snipers could acquire and engage American targets. Sarah made a tactical decision that would define the entire battle. Instead of engaging the closest target first, She chose to eliminate the enemy sniper who posed the greatest threat to American lives. The Taliban marksman on the eastern ridge had clear shots at the main defensive positions and was systematically targeting Marine squad leaders and machine gunners. Her first shot of the battle traveled 1,050 meters across the valley and struck the enemy sniper in the head, killing him instantly. Emma confirmed the hit and immediately began searching for the next target while Sarah worked her rifle bolt and prepared for rapid engagement. They had practiced this drill hundreds of times, but never under actual combat conditions with return fire coming from multiple directions. The second enemy marksman was positioned in the northern mountains, approximately 900 meters from the base. He had been targeting the American mortar teams, trying to eliminate the base's indirect fire support capabilities. Emma called out his position just as Sarah fired her second shot, but the Taliban fighter moved at the last second, and the bullet missed by inches. Return fire immediately began striking around their position as enemy snipers located the source of the American shots. Bullets cracked overhead and struck the sandbags protecting their firing position. Sarah and Emma remained calm, knowing that panic would get them killed faster than enemy marksmanship. They had trained for this exact situation during countless hours of practice. Emma spotted movement in the western ridge and identified a third enemy sniper who was targeting American communications personnel. She called out the range and, bearing while Sarah shifted her aim and fired without hesitation. The shot was perfect, striking the Taliban marksman center mass and eliminating another threat to American forces. But the enemy was adapting faster than expected. Instead of operating independently, the remaining Taliban snipers began coordinating their attacks to overwhelm the American counter-sniper team. Sarah and Emma suddenly found themselves taking fire from 4 different directions as enemy marksmen tried to pin them down or eliminate them entirely. A bullet struck the sandbag directly behind Sarah's head, missing her by less than 2 inches. Emma immediately called out the location of the shooter while Sarah rolled to a new firing position and acquired the target. The enemy sniper was well concealed behind rocks, with only his rifle barrel visible through a narrow opening. Sarah held her breath and squeezed the trigger, sending a bullet through the opening and ending another threat. The battle continued with intensity that exceeded anything the sisters had experienced during their previous deployments. Enemy fire was constant and accurate, forcing them to move between positions while maintaining their counter-sniper mission. Sarah had already eliminated 3 enemy marksmen, but at least 5 more were still engaging American forces from various locations. Emma spotted 2 Taliban snipers operating together from a position in the southern mountains. They were coordinating their attacks and covering each other while engaging different American targets. The tactical challenge was significant because eliminating one would immediately alert the other to the presence of American counter-snipers. Sarah decided to engage both targets in rapid succession, hoping to eliminate them before either could escape or return effective fire. She aimed at the first enemy sniper and fired, then immediately worked her rifle bolt and shifted to the second target. Both shots found their marks within 6 seconds, dropping both Taliban fighters and eliminating a significant threat to the base defenses. The remaining enemy snipers recognized that they were being systematically eliminated and began trying to locate and destroy the American counter-sniper team. Return fire became increasingly accurate as Taliban marksmen focused their efforts on the sisters' general area. Sarah and Emma were forced to abandon their primary position and move to their secondary location under direct fire. The movement between positions was the most dangerous part of the entire engagement. They had to cross 30 meters of open ground while enemy snipers were actively trying to kill them. Emma moved first, sprinting between covered positions while Sarah provided overwatch and engaged any enemy fighters who tried to target her sister. A Taliban sniper fired at Emma as she crossed the open area, but Sarah spotted his muzzle flash and returned fire immediately. Her bullet struck the enemy marksman in the shoulder, wounding him severely and disrupting his aim. Emma reached the secondary position safely and quickly established her spotting equipment while Sarah prepared to make the same dangerous crossing. Sarah's movement drew fire from multiple directions as enemy snipers tried to prevent the American counter-sniper team from reaching better positions. Bullets struck all around her as she sprinted toward Emma's location, but her Montana upbringing and military training had prepared her for exactly this kind of physical challenge under extreme stress. She reached the secondary position with bullets still cracking overhead and immediately began engaging enemy targets from the new location. The change in position gave them better angles on several Taliban fighting positions that had been partially concealed from their original location. Emma quickly identified 3 more enemy snipers and called out their positions in rapid succession. Sarah engaged all 3 targets within 90 seconds, eliminating 2 enemy marksmen and severely wounding the third. Her accuracy under combat conditions was exceptional, but both sisters knew that their ammunition supplies were becoming a concern. They had been engaged in intensive combat for over 2 hours and had expended more than half of their available rounds. Colonel Rodriguez's voice came over the radio with updates on the overall battle situation. American forces were holding their defensive positions, but enemy attacks were intensifying in several sectors. The Taliban assault was larger than anticipated, with over 200 enemy fighters attacking the base from multiple directions. The success of the counter-sniper mission was crucial to the base's survival. Emma spotted movement in the eastern mountains and identified what appeared to be an enemy sniper team leader directing the remaining Taliban marksmen. The target was approximately 1,200 meters away and partially concealed behind rock formations. Eliminating him might disrupt enemy coordination and reduce the effectiveness of remaining sniper attacks. The shot represented the longest engagement of Sarah's military career. She had made kills at similar distances during training, but never under combat conditions with return fire coming from multiple directions. Emma called out all the relevant data, while Sarah adjusted her scope and controlled her breathing despite the adrenaline flooding her system. The bullet traveled for nearly 3 seconds before striking the enemy commander in the chest. Emma confirmed the hit through her binoculars and immediately noticed a change in enemy sniper behavior. Without their leader providing coordination, the remaining Taliban marksmen began operating independently and less effectively. The tide of battle began to shift in favor of American forces as enemy sniper effectiveness decreased. Marine machine gunners and riflemen were able to engage Taliban assault teams without constant harassment from precision fire. The base's defensive systems began to function as designed, with overlapping fields of fire preventing enemy breakthrough attempts. Sarah continued engaging individual enemy snipers while Emma maintained communication with base operations and called in artillery strikes on Taliban positions that were beyond rifle range. They had been in continuous combat for over 3 hours, and both women were beginning to feel the physical and mental strain of prolonged engagement under extreme conditions. The final enemy sniper proved to be the most skilled and dangerous of the entire engagement. He had remained hidden throughout the battle, studying American defensive positions and waiting for the opportunity to strike a decisive blow. Emma finally spotted him moving between positions in the northern ridge, approximately 800 meters from the base perimeter. This Taliban marksman was clearly a professional, moving with precision and discipline that indicated extensive military training. He had chosen his final position carefully, with excellent concealment and multiple escape routes. Sarah realized that eliminating him would require patience and perfect accuracy, because she might only get one opportunity before he disappeared again. The final duel between Sarah Mitchell and the last enemy sniper lasted nearly 30 minutes. Both fighters were skilled professionals who understood that the slightest mistake would be fatal. The Taliban marksman fired several shots at American positions, trying to draw return fire that would reveal counter-sniper locations. Sarah remained motionless, waiting for her opportunity. The enemy sniper finally made a critical error when he shifted positions to get a better shot at the American command post. Emma spotted the movement immediately and called out his exact location. Sarah had been waiting for this moment, her rifle already aimed at the area where she expected him to appear. Her final shot of the battle was perfect, striking the enemy sniper in the head and ending the last threat to American forces. Emma confirmed the kill, and suddenly, the mountains fell silent except for the distant sound of Taliban forces retreating from their failed assault. The counter-sniper mission was complete, and Forward Operating Base Reaper had survived its greatest test. Colonel Rodriguez personally visited their position as dawn broke over the valley. He found Sarah and Emma sitting exhausted among empty ammunition boxes and spent shell casings, their rifles finally silent after hours of continuous engagement. The colonel informed them that they had eliminated 11 confirmed enemy snipers during the battle, probably saving dozens of American lives. The 480 Marines who had initially dismissed the sisters with jokes and skepticism now treated them with the respect reserved for proven combat veterans. Sergeant Thompson approached their position and formally thanked them for their service, admitting that their performance had exceeded everyone's expectations. Corporal Jackson simply nodded and walked away, his earlier doubts permanently answered. Word of the battle spread throughout the American forces in Afghanistan within days. The Mitchell sisters had proven that skill and determination mattered more than physical size or gender in combat situations. Their performance at Forward Operating Base Reaper became legendary among military snipers and served as proof that America's best warriors came in many different forms. Sarah and Emma continued their deployment for 6 more months, participating in numerous missions and training other American snipers in advanced counter-sniper techniques. They returned to the United States as decorated combat veterans with reputations that would follow them throughout their military careers. Years later, when military historians studied the Battle of Forward Operating Base Reaper, they concluded that the Mitchell sisters' counter-sniper mission had been the decisive factor in repelling the Taliban assault. 2 women from Montana had changed the course of a major battle through courage, skill, and the unshakable determination that their father had taught them during hunting expeditions in the American wilderness. The laughter and mockery that had greeted their arrival at the base was never mentioned again. Instead, the story became one of professional respect earned through exceptional performance under the most challenging conditions imaginable. The Sniper Sisters had proven that heroes come in all forms, and that underestimating someone based on appearance rather than ability is always a dangerous mistake.